Welcome to Nightlight Theatre. Tonight, a story about not being too hard on yourself. Before we begin, if you'd like to hear this story completely ad-free or with a different background ambience, head to the Patreon link in the description below. And with that, take a breath, get cozy, and let's drift into it. There was once a small little library in a small little town. A town so small it was hardly ever noticed. Most people just passed through this town, and if you asked anyone who lived there, they would tell you that most things, including the library, shut by 9 in the evening. On almost every night that was true. But once a year, on a night that never fell on the same date twice, the library stayed open a little longer. The light stayed on, and the door, when you would try it, was unlocked. Elise hadn't planned to be out this late. She'd just been walking the way she did on nights her own house felt too quiet to sit still in. Her feet carried her past the little brick building with its dark green awning and was surprised to see a light still on inside. The windows were glowing gold and flooding out into the darkened street. Elise thought she was seeing things and rubbed her eyes. She hadn't been sleeping well. Not since she had left her job 3 weeks ago. The one she told herself for 2 years she was fine with, right up until the day she wasn't. She hadn't told anyone yet, even though she kept meaning to. Curious, she approached the door, thinking it would probably be locked. As she reached for the handle, it twisted quite easily in her hand, and the door slowly and smoothly opened up. A small bell rang once above the frame, and the sound seemed to hang in the air just a moment longer than it should have. Inside, everything looked the way it always did, but also not quite. The front desk sat empty, its lamp lit, casting soft shadows across the wood. An old card catalog sat in the back, almost like abandoned decoration. The building somehow seemed larger on the inside, and the shelves stretched back farther than she remembered. Elise gave herself a little painless pinch to make sure she was in fact lucid. She walked down the nearest aisle, letting her fingers trail along the spines. Most of the books were ordinary, worn leather covers, faded lettering, that familiar papery smell that all libraries share. But here and there, tucked between titles she knew, sat books that she didn't recognize at all. Their covers were a multitude of different colors, with letters pressed into them in fresh metallic ink. Some gold, some silver, some green, some red. The ink shone brightly in the golden light of the candles. She didn't pick out any of them. It somehow didn't feel right that she should pick any of them. So she just continued walking, continued gently tracing the shelves as she walked, noticing the difference in textures from book to book. As she got near the back, she heard the sound of creaking wood settling in. Past a reading nook with 2 soft old armchairs, she found a woman sitting with a book open on her lap. She didn't seem to be reading it exactly. She was resting her hands on the open pages, almost as if she were trying to absorb the information through her fingers. She wore a purple cardigan that was weathered a bit at the elbows, and her glasses had slid halfway down her nose, though she didn't seem to mind or even notice. Suddenly, without looking up at Elise, the woman spoke. "You'll want to look for your name," the woman said, without glancing up. "It's easier to find than you'd think." Sorry?" Elise finally responded, after a short moment. "What's your name?" asked the woman, now looking up at Elise, her wise, old gray eyes shining in the warmth of the lamps. "My name?" Elise asked. It'll be on a spine, just one, and just tonight. It only shows up when someone needs it." The woman turned back to her book, flipped the page, slow and unhurried. "Come back tomorrow at noon and you won't find it, but it's here right now. Go and look." Elise, now thoroughly confused, went back into the stacks. She wasn't sure she believed the woman, but she found herself scanning the shelves for her name anyway, as if she were looking for a familiar face in a crowd. It took a while. The smell of lamp oil and dust mixed in the air. The old wood beneath her feet creaked ever so slightly with every step. She checked 3 aisles and found nothing but familiar titles. Something in her chest tightened with each empty shelf. It was the same feeling she got every time she looked for job listings, but inadvertently didn't apply for anything. She almost turned back toward the exit, almost decided this whole strange night had nothing for her after all. Then, in the 4th aisle, low on a shelf she'd nearly passed by, she saw it. A slim book bound in purple and orange. It reminded her of a sunset. Along the spine, in handwriting she almost recognized as her own, was her name, glowing under the light in a sepia-toned ink. She slid it out, and it was lighter than she expected, and warm, like it had been left out in the sun, though the sun had long since set. She carried it gently to the reading nook and sank into the second armchair. The cushion sighed beneath her, worn into a shape that fit her almost too well. The lamp beside her cast a small but bright and comforting circle over her lap. Beyond its edge, the rest of the library seemed to fade out into a shadowy gray. She gently opened the book. The pages looked blank at first, but then slowly, faint words rose to the surface, pale as warm breath on a cold window, as if the story were being remembered into existence, one line at a time, exactly as fast as she was ready for it. It was a story about a woman who no longer felt passion for something she once loved, and who worried that it would be something that she would never find again for anything. The story did not scold her for worrying. It didn't rush to fix it either. It just laid the feeling out gently and allowed her to look at it for as long as she needed. Elise read about the woman in the story and sat with each of the pages for a long while. She mulled over the same worries as the woman in the story, until finally she noticed something she had been too tired to notice on her own. She hadn't left her job because she was afraid of hard work. She'd left because the work stopped meaning anything to her, and she had been brave enough to stop pretending otherwise. All this time, she thought she had failed, but this was not failure. It had only felt that way. Her leaving her job was a new beginning. The next, she giggled slightly at the irony, chapter of her life. Somewhere in the middle pages, without quite noticing the shift, Elise felt her own breathing slow to match the pace of the sentences as she read them in her mind. The tight feeling in her chest loosened a little. Her worries began to fade for the moment. The lamplight seemed to grow warmer. Her eyes got just a little heavier. It became harder to say where the sentences in the story ended and others began. She looked up once and noticed the woman's armchair was empty. The woman's book sat closed now on a little table between them. Elise looked back down. Her own book had fewer pages left than before, though she couldn't say when she'd turned them. The pages that remained didn't rush her, and she didn't rush them. As she got to the final lines, on the final page, the last paragraph was simple. While this is an ending, it is not the ending. It is the start of something new. Rest now, and when you meet tomorrow, do so slowly and with kindness to yourself. Elise closed the book and sat with it in her lap for a while, a comforting warmth cascading over her entire body. She didn't remember standing up or walking back past shelves over to the front desk or crossing the room to the door, but she must have, because she found herself there, the bell above the frame, silent now, waiting for her hand. As she stepped outside, the street looked exactly as she had left it. Behind her, the library windows had already begun to dim, the gold light softening toward the ordinary dark of a building closed for the night. She didn't look back for long. Something in her believed that if she did, she might find the door locked again. The hour sign back in the window, as if nothing had happened at all. Walking home, she found she couldn't recall the exact words of the story, only the vague outline and shape of it, like a familiar melody whose lyrics couldn't be remembered. But she did remember the way that it made her feel, full of warmth and hope that things would be okay. She thought for the first time in 3 weeks that she might sleep well tonight. She thought, too, that tomorrow she wouldn't be so hard on herself and give herself the kindness she deserved. And maybe she might finally tell someone about how she's been feeling. Not because the library had told her to, but because it no longer felt like something she needed to carry alone. Perhaps she'd pass that library again tomorrow, in the daylight, and find it closed at 9 like always, and think nothing more of it. But she felt comfort knowing it would still be there, ready to stay open a little longer for whoever needed it, with their name pressed quietly into a spine, waiting to be noticed. And with that, let's call it a night. Keep the nightlight on and sleep well.